Greetings, everyone. Once again, it's your brother's son, SRxun S, if you want to be all official like. And when everything's added up, the sum is Christ. I don't know if you've picked up on this already or not, or whether it can be said the same way, not the same way, if the same reigns true in your life, in your walk with the Lord. But He deals with me always in what I just coined when I was writing these notes: the present future. And to expound on that idea, when He's dealing with me on something, and thankfully He always is seeking to grow me and provide me increase, and that increase is for me in holiness and righteousness and closeness with Him, so that the multiplicity of the fruit of His Spirit can be harvested from my life. And so it's like, even before, using this analogy of harvest and things, it's like even before I came on the scene, He had already provided the place or the plot where I was to be planted. And so that's, well, no, my fault. I'll just stick with my original idea. And to make it simple, don't hold me to that, but this is my attempt. Yesterday, He was dealing with me, and this goes for everything else, but I'll give you a specific example. Yesterday, He was dealing with me, or the idea began being formed about the different age groups, the different categories, and placing a value. All are valuable, but valuation of different stages in life. Let me put it that way, not to alienate or cause separation or division. So the value of the different stages of my life. And so He was giving me and forming that idea yesterday, but already had today in mind. And that's kind of the general idea of the present future. A lot of times He presents me with something that I really don't understand and don't know what it's for. But I'm learning from His Word to keep those things close. Hold on to the things that He gives, because not all the time is it for that exact moment. But later on down the line, something will arise, and I always realize God's got me. He already prepared me for this moment, because that thing that I didn't understand before is needed for this moment. So that's why I termed it, He's always dealing with me in the present future. And yesterday and today is an example of that, as again, the different values on the stage of life. Today, in, I would say, basically all of chapter 1 of the treatment, He continues to expound upon that idea for me. And so here they're actually starting to number, i.e. the title of this book. But the ones that were counted, and this goes back to this idea that started yesterday of, if we were called together, that the most valuable stage of my existence is this 20 to 60 year group. This idea is, lined upon today when God is showing that when they were taking the count, that's who they were counting, the age group of 20 to 60. In total, and again, the numbers throw me off, so I won't even give the number of all the able bodies, because the main idea is the stage of life. And again, yesterday, the value placed upon this stage of life was the greatest. Here, I'm kind of realizing and saying, man, that's the reason, Lord? Or I had the aha moment. I didn't really form it as a question. It was like, oh, okay, that's the reason. Because these are the ones who are able to war. These are the ones that are going there and actually frontline, defense, offense, I'll give you an example. I didn't mean to bring this up, but it all ties in together. Right out of high school, well, I use that term loosely, right after miraculously receiving my high school diploma, I went into the military and went to basic training. I truly enjoyed it, because that's my deal. Like, give me a weapon, put me in the woods, let me do obstacles and these things. That's what it's about, for me. Finish that off. I got some stories inside of that, but I'll leave that for another time, because I don't want to go too far off the beaten path. Again, I'm gonna try. Go to school. I don't know what it's called now. It's been decades, but it was called AIT, and I forget what that stands for. I think maybe some type of initial training or something. Army initial training, maybe. Who knows? But I go to the schooling to learn my job, which was, well, I'm not gonna get into the initials of everything. But went to do the training, finished that, graduated, and then I was on a hold. I wasn't able to go to my first duty station because they had this thing called an ETNAC hold that they had on me. Security stuff, right? And I'm like, why didn't they just clear this or take care of this before they let me in, And of course, I'm there for months and months and months. Shortening this long story, I'm getting in all sorts of trouble. And because of all this, and DUI I caught was my last straw. And that's another thing, because I wasn't even really drunk, but being underage, the limit is so small. Either case, that was the end of my military career. And honestly, I came back home and I wouldn't really think anything of it, because for me and the group that I was running with, and even people I met in the military, like all the people that I came up with, a few of us were out, got kicked out, you know what I'm saying? And for whatever reason, and even people in there. And I started realizing, it wasn't for me. It's a certain type, and like from our background and this, you call it real or whatever you want to call it, the excuse, it just wasn't for me. But over the years, as I began to mature and appreciate things more. I always appreciated the time there, and I really thought it was a godsend because my job was combat support. I worked on I was a crew chief for attack helicopters, the Apache, and that's combat support. We're not front line, but we got to be close enough to the line to get them out there, do their job, and come back. And it wasn't too long after I got out that the Gulf War popped off. Knowing for sure I would have been over there. And hearing the stories of things now, who knows? I probably wouldn't be here speaking to you now had it been written by God another way. And again, I realized that all these things, as I talked about before, the present, future, So in any case, over the years, I start to think and start having to, as I talked about before, trying to, set that base, become the fully formed person I was always meant to be, in the proper place of, that, 5 months to 20-year-old range, setting that foundation. And I promise in my head, I'm going to try to tie this all together. Let's see what happens. So as I'm in the 20 to 60 group now, the most valuable, portion of my life, I'm now having to go back and do makeup work, And so in this journey, I was like, man, I want to make amends. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be in this country. I truly believe, regardless of everything, that America was, and I believe always will be, the nation built under God, where a nation is supposed to be, not overstanding, but under, in submission to God. So I'm truly grateful for that. And I gotta say, the experience that I had in the military, that was the first time I had ever kind of really gotten out of where I grew up. So it helped me to realize the world is a much bigger place. It expanded my mind in that way. And I honestly say that even though, again, this whole present future, even though at the time, the things they were teaching, integrity, honor, loyalty, discipline, all of these things they were teaching me, while I wasn't grasping it at the time, now as I talk to you, I hold these things dear. So I'm grateful for it. And so I said all this because I said, okay, you know what? I really want to make amends. It was like, I felt it was like a blot, on my record, so to say. They talked about your permanent record. So, a couple months ago, I said, you know what? And I've always had it in mind. I've tried a couple times and I never really pursued it too hard. I said, you know what? I'm going to see if I can kind of make things right, go serve and go do this time. And I'm going to try to put my feelings aside. But I go down there, and the recruiter I'm dealing with, one of the main things before, he goes, look, man, the military wants to invest in people that they can really get a return of investment out of, And at this stage of my life, I'm basically more than halfway through the able-bodied stage of life, this most valuable stage. But I said all that to talk about the importance, and if I could bring it back again, because before I get to that, after this stage comes what I call, or as God calls it, I'm just trying to call it like He does in my own words, the exempt status, the 60 plus, and I kind of lumped the 60 plus age group, while not front line anymore, but you're now the savvy vets, the savvy Levites. Let me see. Levites. I'm sure I like words, so I put that together. But in any case, that are responsible now for carrying and caring for and preserving the legacy, the truth. Youth is wasted on the young. So it's important to have that 60 plus there in order to, and really they were the ones closest to the core, the center, where they camped. God was there and they were exempt. And so again, as you can see, this is how the thought process is being fully formed from yesterday, lining upon line today. And well, that wasn't a good segue. The main part I wanted to talk about, and I think they're all important, but this 5-month to 20-year age group again, to me is so crucial. And the reason why I actually changed my main idea today from what it was to what it is now is because of the fact that, like, my spirit is like very disturbed at all of the abominable behaviors. I don't want to get too far into that because, like, those feelings kind of run deep, and I put some things together. But God talks about, one of the things that he states is abominable to him is taking the role of man and woman out of context. It talks about, man laying with a man and a woman laying with a woman as abominable. Laying with abominable things. And again, it goes back to, for me, stemming from trying to pull apart the yin and yang. Messing, when you mess with the two parts, there's no more balance. Balance is impossible. And so what disturbed me was this whole thing now where, there's really this abominable force that is, seeping its way in. It started with this one, commercial that if you listen to what they're saying, if you're just looking at what they're doing, you'll never pick up on it. But it's like it's saying one thing and showing you another thing. But the really disturbing part was that it's seeping down, because again, 20 to 60 is, the powerful stage. So it's very difficult, I believe, for the enemy to infiltrate that, because at this stage already, you're kind of already fully formed, or supposed to be. So I believe, and again, the 60 plus, the vets, they've been through the war. They've seen it all. Like, they're not phased. You ever seen, I read those Vietnam vets, the baby boomers, they say they were really the toughest generation. I believe that. And I admire them for their strength. A lot of what we have, everything we have, is built upon what the base they provided. So, salute and big ups to all of them. But they're not phased by things, especially those that have really been in the trenches. And so I think it's even more difficult for the enemy to get there. So he says, I'm going to go to the vulnerable. And that's why I'm seeing now that he's really attacking the 5-month to the 20-year-old. That group right there. I would say, in my eyes, the most valuable, because that's the future, the potential. You're talking about present, future. That's where things are going. And so the really disturbing thing to me was, that you're having transgender children. the most disturbing part about that is, to me, is these are children. So that means that the most powerful, you have basically multiple age groups combining in the destruction of the younger age group. And in my opinion, it's all self-destruction. Because since everything's connected, it's actually attacking, the system is attacking each other. The age groups are attacking each other, which will be the collapse of it. Again, I think in plainer, I'm getting a little excited here because this is very, again, it's very disturbing. It's very important that all the parts are strong, because that's how we're gonna move together, not as an organization. I'm not into the organization. I'm talking about an organism. If all the parts and members of an organism are functioning in their role and capacity at peak performance, it all contributes to the health and well-being of the organism. And so I pose this question to you because, again, it was actually the parent talking about or justifying this abominable behavior. To me, that's the most serious child abuse. I'll ask this question. Minors, the biggest thing, jailbait, all this stuff, simply because the law and the notion is at the age of 18, only until a child is of the age of 18 have they fully formed enough to begin making rational decisions. And I use that term loosely again, but that's what it is, right? So if that's true, then how can, and this was a child, how can a 6-year-old, how can a 4-year-old, how can a 12-year-old, based on your initial definition, make such a determination? Again, to me, it's the category, it's being pushed. It's trying to form them in an abominable way to build abominable soldiers. So once they're in this 20 to 60 group, you now have a force of abominability. Because the whole thing is to get them to make them savvy vets of abomination in the 60 plus. Because right now, it's a problem. You can't get there because you got the vets. You got the toughest generation. You got the most determined generation. You got the most loyal generation. They're still there. Thank God. Then you got those that I hope the next line, which I fall in, which I'm doing all I can to continue, holding steadfast to these things in order for us to, because it's important for us to train up the futures so that they can be able to stand against this. Because it's not easy. I would say it's not easy being in that generation in this day and age. I don't feel I would have made it. If I would always say, to come up. If I came up in this time, I would have been destroyed. I'll give you, I always want to be giving you something, a giver, but gotta hold some things, it's a long journey. But this, again, just adds to this initial idea that God helped me build upon about the value. Every stage is valuable. And I believe that the earliest that we can begin to instill the value of the Most High God into the hearts and minds of His beloved people, all people, because He made all of us, then that value will just begin to grow exponentially, so that the generation, if God tarries His coming, that when this, I don't even know what generation we're on, because it's, XYZ, who knows? But when those in the 5 to 20 year generation now are now the elder vet generation, this thing will keep going. Well, let me just say this. It will always keep going. Nothing will ever come against the body of God, the church, the people of God, His church. I just want to be in that number. I just want you to be in that number. I'm a dreamer again. I want all of us to be in that number. It takes, though, doing the work. Realizing and growing the value of our individual stocks so that the entire index community, I'm trying to put it all together, keep it together like that, can grow in value. Everybody who is able is important. And for me, that's everybody. Because the ability just increases with value. Caption this. Sir.